Because it doesn't have.
It's never zero.
But noise and climate infections.
The apartments, they're really,
Well, that must be, their infection rate did not go down to zero. You can be sure of that.
That's what they're stating.
that's called. See, I think it's the, it's the residents. I think so. Yeah.
Good evening. I'd like to welcome you to the December 6th and final meeting of the Logan City Municipal Council for for 2022.
For June?
For June.
I wish it were June.
I know you don't wish it were June. Come on.
I like June.
You'd have to put up with me for 6 more months.
Let's do it.
So, because I'm terrible at choosing opening ceremony people to do opening ceremonies, I made the choice this evening for us to open with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you will all rise and join me, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our next order of business this evening is the acceptance of the minutes from our last meeting and the approval of the agenda for this evening.
That's your cue, Amy.
I was looking for a pen, but I would move acceptance of the minutes and the approval of the agenda.
Second.
Somebody second.
It's been moved and seconded. Yes, Mark did. So all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Our regular meeting schedule is the first and third Tuesdays of the month. However, this month, we will not be having a meeting on the 20th of December. Please go to some festive holiday thing instead.
Enjoy.
Now we're open the floor for questions and comments for the mayor and the council. And I know we have one individual in the audience who has asked to take a little bit of time to talk about something special near and dear to her heart.
Right now, I am just Gail Yost, the Jewish woman who's also LDS, so my children got blessed with 2 types of guilt growing up.
I love it.
But I wanted to let you know about Hanukkah, because I talked about it a little, I think, last year. I really didn't get too much done about it, other than say it was coming. This year, it will start on the 18th. That's the night of the 18th at sundown. It always starts the night before. That's the day in Jewish calendar. Starts at sundown, ends at sundown. Because Hanukkah is 8 nights. Because it took 8 nights to make more sacred oil. And the one part of the oil that they had was only supposed to last for 1 night. But they lighted it anyway because they had finally gotten the Jews, the Maccabees, had finally gotten the temple back from the Syrians. And it had been defiled by sacrifices and other kinds of things. So they cleaned it up, and then they lighted that 1 night's worth of oil, and it lasted 8 nights. And as my children and grandchildren were growing up, and my foster kids, they found that doing this, especially when we had candles, was very helpful to them to see that there are other cultures and other ways of celebrating. And this was about celebrating freedom. The term Maccabee means hammer. That these Maccabees, the 5 brothers, started with their father, but he eventually passed away. But Judas Maccabee is the one who led his brothers to hit like a hammer and go back to the hills. And I think that was the first recorded ambushing of winning a war. And it's a very important part of history because it was about retaining their freedom. It was about having the ability to study Torah, to teach their children, to worship as they were taught to worship, and to make sure that they worshiped the proper God, the one God, and not the gods of the Syrians. And so this was a very important time that they won back their time of history. Now, I am going to read a little bit of the service for Hanukkah, but I'll read it in English. Okay, I can pronounce if I see it written in our alphabet, but I don't know otherwise what I'm saying. And in Jewish custom, the woman always, the mother of the family, always said the prayer. And she usually had a scarf or something over her head as she said it. And this was to let people know that we always respected that God was watching over us. That's what the yarmulke, that handwear is all about. That's a yarmulke. Or in some cases, in slang, in Hebrew or Yiddish slang, it's a kippah. But this was my dad's. And my father, when he died, left all those things to, I think this was my dad, and he left all of that to my brother. But my brother actually handed me his very old scarf or yes. I lose words. It's chronic fatigue syndrome. It's not old age. I've been doing this since I was 37. But I got through a PhD after that, so I must be okay. Anyway, Tom, you look like you know what's going on with this.
Somewhat.
And that's important to know that this culture is a culture of belonging to a group that is not better than others, but has a greater responsibility to teach about God. That is why we are considered the chosen people, not because we're better, but we have more on our shoulders to teach. So I will read this to you, and then I will light the first light, which is the shamas. And when we're doing candles, the shamas is the worker light that we use to light the others. And one of the things that we do, this is the button right here for this, because it's electronic. We always put the candles in from right to left, and we light the candles from left to right, regardless of whether the shamas is on this side or in the middle. It doesn't matter. The first night, we put one candle in besides the shamas. We let them burn that. The second night, 2 candles, and we light that with the shamas, and so on until the 8th night. And I always let the children light the other lights, because it was very important to them to know that this included them, whether they were my biological kids or my extra kids. It doesn't matter, but they felt more attached to the tradition by participating in it, and that's very important. Blessed art thou, the Eternal, our God, King of the universe, who hath sanctified us with his commandments and charged us to kindle Hanukkah light. Blessed art thou, the Eternal, our God, King of the universe, who brought miracles for our forefathers in former days at this season. Blessed art thou, the Eternal, our God, King of the universe, who hath preserved us alive, sustained us, and caused us to attain this season. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on the first light, going from left to right. And I'm going to let each of you push the button to turn on the next light.
The green button.
Yeah.
Push just the green button. Just the green button.
Teresa, you get to be last.
One of the things about Hanukkah is that it is 8 nights, and the kids love the fact that they knew they would get some kind of gift, whether it's small or big, they didn't know. Sometimes it was just a quarter, sometimes an orange, sometimes a piece of candy. So I'm going to let each of you, I think I'll come around this way, and it'll be easier. This is marzipan. Do you know what marzipan is? Okay, good. It is such a delight to have. It tastes all the same, it's just put in fruit book.
Different shapes.
Yeah, fruit shapes, colors,
Oh, yum.
and
I think you need to leave it to sit here.
I'll let you order some for yourself. Thank you, Bill.
I don't know, Mayor, do we have permission to eat?
Paste.
This is an important part of Hanukkah because we celebrate the fact that we have the freedom to even have treats and gifts,
I think this is made out of.
and that, of course, we have the greatest gift of all, that of freedom. Freedom to worship. And I don't know if you realize one of the things that the traditions of Hanukkah is having a dreidel. You know what a dreidel is for? Oh, I'm so proud. All of you have really learned a lot in your lives instead of just your own culture. And that's important to learn about other cultures. Well, I don't think I have enough, but I have dreidels. This is a dreidel I got when I was 9 years old or 8 years old in Tampa, Florida, when I went to a Hanukkah party. And so when I get a dreidel given to me, you can each choose a dreidel.
Thank you, Gail.
And I have the one that has the letters and the names of them. Nun, Gimel, Hey, and Sheen. Nun, when you gamble, everybody puts in an ante. Nun means when you spin, you get nothing. Gimel means you get everything.
Yes, ma'am.
Hey means you get half, and Sheen means you have to put something extra in. And I taught the 4-H Teen Council how to gamble with this. And they had so much fun because they were gambling with, basically it was candy. Each one brought different kinds of candy. And it was a lot of fun for them to see how another culture celebrated, and that gambling could be done in a very wholesome way. So I just thought maybe you'd like to know. If you want to look up what the letters are, you can probably do that online and ask Google or whoever to give you the letters and their names. And that way you'll know what it looks like. And you can use this for a gambling game if you have grandchildren. and teach them how much fun it is to celebrate in another way.
Thank you, Gail.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gail.
That was the best.
Happy
3 minutes.
Hanukkah.
Yeah, happy Hanukkah.
Oh, and that
Marzipan's
book from which I read
I wonder.
is a book of prayers and traditions of all the different holidays. And so it's what looks like the back of the book is actually the front of the book in Hebrew.
Okay. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Are there any other people who wish to speak to the council this evening about anything that's not otherwise on the agenda?
Actually,
Did you bring treats too?
You know what? I was going to come up and apologize for saying I did not.
Principal Kirk.
Sorry.
Principal Kirk, actually, because your item is on the agenda later, then that's when you would actually make the public comment.
I'm still going to bring treats, sorry.
So, thank you.
I'm glad you knew who that was. I was like, okay.
So,
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who has a comment on something that is not otherwise on the agenda? Seeing no one, I'll turn it over to the mayor.
all right, we have 2 board reappointments that we're requesting council ratify. We're delighted to ask for reappointment of John Zaray to the library board. He's sitting on the back row. Thank you for waiting. He's served 1 term, and the bylaws say he can serve another term, and he's willing to do that. So we would be thrilled if he'd continue. So we'll ask for that. And then the Land Use Appeal Board, this would be a new appointment. Jess Lucero, who you know because she serves on the Planning Commission. This board meets very infrequently, but occasionally there is like a land use issue that the proponent disagrees with the decision, and they do have an appeal process. So Jess is willing to serve on that, and we would recommend that council ratify those 2 names if you so choose.
Is that a conflict?
Well, right now, no, it shouldn't be. For instance, right now, Amanda Davis has been on the board who used to be on Planning Commission.
Right, but Jess is the current chair of Planning Commission.
Right, but see, Amanda had to recuse herself because her husband, who's a realtor, was involved in a particular issue. So there might be an occasion where she had a conflict and then would need to recuse herself, but
But my question would be, the land use decisions are often made by Planning Commission, and either, and then.
If she voted on that decision, she may have to recuse herself, yeah, if there's an appeal. So if the land use decision was appealed and she was a part of the commission that voted it, and she was there, she would have to recuse herself.
But it could also be
Right.
something like a grandfathering
Right.
case where the staff had simply researched the grandfathering issue. That's something Land Use Appeal Board deals
Right,
with.
there's other items that the land use appeal board deals with. I can't remember them all off the top of my head.
Well, and Mayor, it's also really asking if there's an alternate. So we have 3 members on there, we just need an alternate to fill in for Amanda Davis, who has to recuse herself. So Jess
Okay.
in that capacity.
Perfect. So I didn't understand she was simply an alternate, so that clarifies it.
Okay, all right, just want to ask the question in public.
So the appointment is actually for a
To be an
alternate
alternate.
appointment,
Okay.
to be the alternate, okay. I would move, we need a motion on this?
Yeah.
I would enthusiastically recommend John Zaray be appointed to the library board, and that Jess Lucera be appointed as an alternative to the land use appeal board. Did I say that right?
An alternate.
Alternate.
She's not an alternative, she just
She's
is.
an alternate.
I'll second.
Alternate.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Mayor, anything else?
That's all. Thank you.
We'll move now to council business. Planning Commission update. Planning Commission met once in November and will meet once in December. And they spent their time talking about some new ordinances for critical lands overlay, which we will be seeing in the new year, right? So most everything else on the agenda was continued to another date. And it seems like they're all slamming into December.
Some mystery date in the future.
So December will be a long meeting for the Planning Commission. Our second item of council business, I have served as chair for a year, and our tradition is that we change every year. And so I will open it for nominations for council chair for 2023.
Well, I would like to nominate,
Speak your
I
wife.
would like to nominate Ernesto Lopez to serve as chair for 2023.
I'll second that.
Okay. We don't do a formal, I guess we just do an out loud vote. So if
Do you
there
want to see?
Is
who
this
wants
going to be
do it?
ranked choice?
Ranked choice.
it's going to be ranked choice.
Don't you need to ask him if he's willing to serve?
I asked him before the meeting.
Oh,
I
Just
can
in
ask
case
him
it
in
came up.
public.
Yeah, just in case it came
Are
up.
you willing to serve as chair?
Yes.
Is there anyone else who has a passion to do this that needs to
Oh,
be
that's a good
nominated for that? Okay.
Survive somehow.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And then we have to nominate and vote on a vice chair.
I will nominate Amy as the vice chair. Amy Anderson.
motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is
Wait,
there
we
any?
have to ask her if she's willing.
Are you willing?
I would be very willing to
Okay.
support Ernesto.
So are there any other people who have a passion to be the vice chair?
Not today.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Our new chair for next year is Ernesto, and our new vice chair is Amy Anderson.
No campaign signs.
No campaign signs. We don't have to
No
take them down.
speeches. Yeah. This is efficient.
So it's all good. We'll move now to our action items. Our first action item this evening is Zollinger Global Property Annexation. Could you just give us a little update or a review, Mike?
Sure. This property is about just a little less than 19 acres, located at about 2,000 north, 10th west. They've requested annexation. Planning Commission looked at this, recommended approval to you. We're recommending that it be annexed in as industrial property. They've got utilities available adjacent to the site. They own the adjoining property, so it makes good sense for the city.
Any further questions? Any questions of Mike?
So no protests to this?
No, that's correct, no protest.
And I did ask the question, Planning Commission did talk about it October 27th. Because I tried to look it up and I didn't find it.
Couldn't find it.
So I went and asked Russ, and he found it
This
for
one
me.
just makes a lot of sense. So.
This is a public hearing. If there are any members of the public who wish to speak to this, please come to the podium, state your name. Seeing no one, I'll bring it back to the council.
I'll move that we approve ordinance 2220. I can't see any reason not to.
Yeah.
So,
And it's coming in as IP, right?
Yes.
Correct.
Yep.
Industrial park.
so anyway, I'll move that we accept.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Did you have a public hearing?
I did.
We did.
Okay, sorry.
Our second public hearing this evening is a consideration of a proposed resolution approving the program year 2023 Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, otherwise known as the CAPER. And it has to do with HUD and our CDBG money that we receive. Mike, I assume that you are going to look like Amanda and can kind of do a little overview?
B team tonight, yeah.
That's an interesting way to put it.
Well,
I'll do my best.
okay.
Just briefly, this is just it's an annual reporting we do. It goes through the performance of project year 2021, and it's just part of our 5-year plan we do, a lot of process. So when we fund projects in our project year, we don't actually get them done in that year, they generally bleed in the next year or two.
And so in 2021, the project year, we completed these different projects: Riverside Drive Sidewalk, 5th West, 4th South, 6th North, 2nd West, 5th North, 5th East, 88 ramps, 750 North, 6th East, 6th East pedestrian improvements, Bridger Park pathways, and Canyon Road Trail. And of those total projects, we've benefited approximately 28,510 residents, and 18,000 are low to moderate income. Riverside Drive, you're familiar with that. I'll just breeze through these pictures really quick. 5th West, 4th South. And we try to bounce around the neighborhood. We try to spread the limited funding out so that it's fair. And there are a lot of areas that need improvements, obviously. And the city's emphasis is making sure we can put in these types of facilities because it benefits not only those immediate residents, but benefits a broader range of the population. So I can go for a walk in Ellis or Bridger because there's a sidewalk there. 88 ramps are big too. We've had an incident just recently where a man in a wheelchair fell off of a curb, and so it's important that we get these in there and people can safely cross the street.
I will say that they're a little bit treacherous when it's icy.
Yeah,
Because they have a tendency to kind of go this way. and
sometimes a little challenging.
ice
The
sheet.
corners are tough because snow plows push snow up in there. Bridger Park pathways, you can see the pickleball courts, and here's sidewalks in there. Canyon Road Trail, just extension through here. We also fund community types of projects or activities. So Art in the Park mural program, you've seen the murals that went in this year. That's part of that Whittier Center playground floor. English Language Center technology, CAPS technology, Little
Having trouble
Lambs,
with your English language
very,
tonight?
very trouble. Sunshine Terrace fan. So these all directly benefit low to moderate income residents. So happy to answer your questions.
Are there any questions of Mike at this time? This is a public hearing. If any members of the public wish to speak to this, please come to the podium and state your name.
Now I come as Dr. Gail Yost. I know how important, especially those curves, the corners are. My father had taken a fall, and when he was recuperating, and he was in a wheelchair for a while, and it was winter, we had to take him off of the sidewalk through a driveway and to get across the street to church. And it was icy on that road, at least on the side. First East is very busy, but the side gets a lot of ice. And the city council and the staff made sure that it was changed quickly when I made a comment. And it made a world of difference. My daughter is in a wheelchair from MS, and she lives on Center Street. So it's very important, these changes, and we appreciate it. Personally, I appreciate it, but I appreciate it because I have done work with disabled people. I was in special ed originally, and I have worked in a lot of different capacities. And I'm so thankful for these changes, and all I can say is keep it up.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to this? Seeing no one, I'll bring it back to the council.
The 5-year plan, that's more of a plan rather than, more of guidelines rather than
Exact.
rules?
Well, it's a 5-year plan that defines our priorities as a city for 5 years. So when we do projects and activities every year, we've got to conform to that plan. So as we work our way through from year 1 to year 5, year 1 we have a little bit more flexibility, but by year 5 we really got to tailor it down and make sure we meet those goals that we've outlined.
So looking at what's been done, it seemed like infrastructure was a bit higher than pretty much everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So that means this coming year we'll have to slow down in the infrastructure, or?
No, we need to do an analysis on what we have left in terms of percentages of where we can or should spend money. So we'll know more as we enter year 4 on where we're going to end up from the, before year 5.
Well, plus two, I think we need to always remember that in that list that was a few slides ago, that a lot of those projects were the prior year, but they only got completed in 2021. So it makes it look like there were more than.
But the percentages were, I think it was earlier in the slides.
Yeah, so we're mandated on what we can spend based on project or activity type. So we have an administrative cap that we spend on admin and planning, basically administrative program. 30% of the overall funding has to go toward low and moderate income. And then within our plan, what we said is we'll spend 40% on infrastructure, 10% on access mobility, which are those ADA ramps, and then 30% on those human types of services. But the challenge is if you don't get quality applicants or quality activities, then you get a bigger bang for your buck by doing these types of projects because it benefits a wider range of our population. So, and then as we enter into our next planning phase, we'll have these discussions again. What are our priorities in the city? Do we want to focus on, more of the access and mobility, more ADA types of things, more infrastructure? Those things we'll kind of work our way through.
So the guideline then is more to, if it serves the population that we're trying to serve rather than the type of project? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Good question.
But I also think, Mike, we do submit those percentages to the federal government.
Yeah, we're held to those percentages.
So if we say we're going to spend 30% over 5 years on nonprofit, non-infrastructure type things, we have to have that 30% by the end of the 5 years.
But there's also an annual limitation too. So we have to be a little careful in how we approach it in year 4 and 5. If we have to, we'll go back and amend our plan to match what we think we can expend in 4 or 5.
Yeah.
But we still can't exceed thresholds annually. We used to think, well, we could do it over the 5-year window, and it's an annual cap on certain types of activities and projects that we can fund. The overall goal, obviously, is to assist low and moderate income residents. So we've just chosen to do it for infrastructure, access, mobility, and then also some of the health and human service types.
In the future, could we include, you said to keep things fair, you mentioned that you try to do things everywhere in the city. Would it be possible to just divide the city in 4 quadrants and see how much money is going into?
Well, we can give you an accounting based on neighborhoods, so we do it by neighborhoods. Certain areas of the city aren't eligible for CDBG based on their overall population, their economics. We could say, for example, Hillcrest, we can do things that are correct ADA deficiencies, but we can't do overall sidewalk projects or parks and rec types of projects because their incomes are above that threshold. So what we find is that the bulk of the activities happen in Adams, Wilson, Woodruff, and Ellis, and a little bit in Bridger. So.
Thank you.
Well, I'm really pleased with what we've accomplished through the years. I'm coming up on my 10th year, and I'm thinking about all the things that have been approved and completed as we drive around the city and see and remember those places. Particular to my location is Riverside Drive and 6th East. I use that a lot. I was coming home the other night, it was pitch dark, and I saw people coming along the sidewalk and thought about if we didn't have that sidewalk, it would have been extremely dangerous. So thank all of those that were participants. So anyway, I move that we approve the resolution 2247.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll move now to item C, watermark rezone. Russ, can you give us an overview, please?
Good evening, Council. Absolutely. So Watermark is about 11 acres at the 1262 West, 2200 South. It's a rezone application brought to us by Joshua Lowe and Watermark Project LLC. The project included about 232 multifamily dwellings The rezone is a request to go to MR 30. The current zone is commercial. The future land use map calls the area commercial. Along the highway corridor, it's designated as commercial. As you go farther out on each side of the highway, it kind of transitions to different levels of multifamily. Here's a broader view of the area. To the south is the RC zoning district. And this is the proposal here. It's got one existing home and a couple of agricultural structures, barns, etc. The Planning Commission met in October on this project. We received approximately 85 written comments, all in opposition for the rezone. The Planning Commission meeting had about 30 people get up and speak. The Planning Commission recommended denial of the rezone, and that vote was unanimous. Any questions?
Are there any questions for staff?
I think we covered them.
Okay. This is a public hearing, and I would, before we open the public hearing, I want to tell you that we appreciate the comments that we received via email. They were insightful and they had valuable information for us to consider. We would love for you to be able to speak publicly if you would care to. If you feel like you have said what you need to say in your letter, please know that we read them all, and we did absorb all of that information. It is now a public hearing, and if you choose to speak, please come to the microphone, state your name, and take 3 minutes or less, please. Sure.
Okay, my name is Naywani Kirk, and I'm the principal at Thomas Edison Charter School South. I was informed by a reputable source that the City Council will typically uphold the recommendations of the Planning Commission, and in this case, uphold the recommendation to keep the watermark property zoning as commercial. With that hope, I was also advised to have one person represent the concerns of Thomas Edison faculty, staff, and parents. So therefore, we didn't rally the troops. We had 3 rows last time, and we have a few people this time. They also suggested that I read what I have to say in order to keep it short and succinct. So to be respectful to your time, and knowing that you've received and read many concerns, I'd like to share some thoughts and concerns of Thomas Edison and its constituents. So the largest concern that we have are the increase in population to an already highly dense area. With the addition of the strata apartments, as well as the new Firefly estates that have not even been completed, we have an extremely large population in a very small area. This causes traffic congestion, frustration, and adds to the possibility of one of our students getting injured or worse. During our drop-off and pickup, we have over 700 students, representing about 500 families. This student pickup and drop-off is without a busing system. The safety of our students has always been a huge concern and would exponentially be worse. We have students walking in all directions from the school throughout the entire school year. Adding more density, such as what is being proposed by Watermark, compounds the traffic concerns for everyone involved, Thomas Edison, as well as current and new residents. We are also concerned with having high-rise residential next to a school. The concerns expressed in my letter, as well as many others, is again the safety and well-being of our students. Multi-level housing overlooking our playground will completely change the atmosphere that our current students enjoy. This type of high-rise structure will intimidate and cause potential problems for our students, thus taking away from their overall experience. This would be the first elementary school in Cache Valley that has any type of high-rise building next to it, next to its playground or anywhere. Our hope is that you look at the potential problems that putting any large structure overlooking a place of public education would cause. I could go on to list a plethora of other potential challenges that could possibly happen and many worst-case scenarios. However, I feel that you've read enough of those in the letters that have been sent to you, and thank you so much for your replies. We know development is going to happen. we have come to the terms with the fact that something will be built in our backyard. We just hope that with the development comes a focus for our student safety, a conscientiousness in protecting the atmosphere that our students currently enjoy, and to make sure that all parties involved understand the added burdens that would be placed on everyone with the addition of more people, more parking, and more traffic. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak?
My name is Kent Smith. Hopefully my voice holds out. I kind of want to take a tangent and just, I've observed so many connections here. I went to school with Bonnie, your daughter, right? Yeah. And I went to school with Tom's kids, Corey and Tyler. I grew up in the same neighborhood that I believe Mayor Danes Hubbard, is that your name, was from, and Ernesto lives there, Tom lives there. And Mark has walked my orchard in my backyard, to help me with things. And when I moved into my neighborhood in Nibley, I met Shirley Reeder and find out her husband was a firefighter. And my across the street neighbor was Easton Lickby, the long-term fire chief of Logan City. All these connections, it's amazing. Cache Valley's growing and it's big, but we're so all interconnected, and our actions matter, how we treat and interact with other people. And Dr. Yost, I was impressed that holy words from any tradition or religion still touch our souls. So thank you for that. Now on to the matter at hand. I know that you know that your actions and your votes have consequences for people like me that are so intertwined with your children, your current lives, your occupations, and your roles as council members. So I urge you to follow Planning Commission recommendation and deny the rezone. Furthermore, consider some of the comments that have been made about high height buildings adjacent to elementary schools, and look into what can be done with regard to the development standards for commercial that currently allow residential, which is not an entirely objectionable use, but the height and proximity to existing residential and to elementary schools, I believe, are serious considerations. I appreciate your time and the responses I received via email.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no one, I will bring it back to the council.
I made a comment to several of the authors of letters, including Kent, that while there's some other issues with this, denying it does not change the density or the height or the traffic. It could still have a 4-story or, something like that building. The traffic could be worse. So it's just a tough situation, but I heard your voices, and when we come to vote, I'll probably vote to deny it. So I just wanted to let you know that this doesn't solve the problem. It's a problem.
Russ, how is the townhome project in Nibley to the east?
It's around 10 to 12 units per acre.
The one that's in Nibley.
In Nibley.
In Nibley.
Some of the Logan City developments are around 18 to 20 units per acre.
So the things that I was looking at as I addressed this was one, the future land use plan, which we just reapproved within the last year, that we reevaluated and identified that we thought that this still made sense as a commercial property. We had a lot of conversation about that when we rezoned the parcel to the east as mixed use, even as to whether that made sense to allow more residential there. So that to me is always a piece of this, is we do a plan, we assess it, we evaluate it, and it's been determined over the last several years, actually, that commercial, especially along that 8991 corridor, is a more appropriate utilization of that space. So that's one of the things that I'm taking into consideration, as well as some of those comments that were made about the school. But to me, a bigger part of it is just in our role as planning and zoning, do we honor the plans? Do we honor the work that we've done in the past? So to me, the commercial seems to make sense based on that, and again, on the planning and zoning seem to echo that.
We have our zoning, but what's Nibley zone around that area? Do you know what the zone is around the school?
Single family adjacent to the school. They do have some multifamily farther south. And then the Firefly Park is a townhome
But
community.
to the west there, you've got.
To the west is Logan City, and that's all zoned RC.
I mean, to the west of, before you hit the highway.
Oh, yeah, there's some commercial zoning there.
So that's commercial.
Here.
Right there.
Mayor, part of this discussion is that, but not something to determine what we're doing. I just want to clarify. There's been discussions in the past with Nibley about readjusting the boundary, which would take it off of our purview and allow Nibley to deal with it.
That's correct, and Mayor Jacobson is a relatively new mayor. I did touch base with him again, a couple of months ago, kind of when this came up, just said our offer is still on the table if Nibley has any interest in adjusting the boundary. Our suggestion had been the middle of 2200 South, so anything south would go to Nibley, and then also the center of US 8991 would be a dividing line as well. But as some of you were on the council when we went out and met with their council in a joint meeting. So, we just think it makes sense from a good governance perspective to straighten the lines out. And I said that offer was still on the table, but it's essentially in Nibley's court. I said, it's in your court. I don't know if your council has, changed
They
their
haven't
views.
responded, I guess, recently.
He said he would touch base with his council, but again, he sort of knows the offer's on the table, but it's in their court if they choose to, pursue it further.
And he reiterated to me that he had given it to the council and had talked to them about it when I saw him not too long ago. So
Right.
I don't know what the future holds for that.
Exactly. I mean, it would have to be approved by both city councils. So.
Correct. With respect to the question about building close to a school, do we have anything in our zoning code now that has anything to do with that?
No, each zone has setbacks associated with it, but they don't take into account schools. There is height transitions when you're near lower density single family, so it limits the amount of height in some cases, but no, not that I'm aware of. The other difficulty is it's outside of the city of Logan's boundary, so it's a different jurisdiction altogether. And we don't have any code that says treat it differently because that's a different jurisdiction when you're right on the boundary.
Okay. Well,
But certainly there's rules about what is and isn't allowed near a school in terms of business types too, which, isn't, if you look at our use guidelines, so something near a school, we do restrict the types of businesses that can be in proximity to a school.
Yes, very much so. So the type of business or the use of the land is limited, but not necessarily the structure or the design or layout.
so the use of the land is limited. What did you mean by that?
Well, for instance, state law prohibits tobacco or alcohol sales in certain proximities to school, and those would supersede local zoning.
Yeah.
Okay.
Adult-oriented businesses would be.
Yeah.
But I was trying to get at when you said type of land use, not type of business.
Yeah, I meant business type.
Okay, it's just business type. It's not land use type.
Land use is just another word for saying that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm trying to be clear.
Okay.
Very clear.
Business type.
Okay. So in the case of the public schools, The reason there's nothing around them is because they purchased that much property, correct? In most cases?
I don't know what you mean by around them, but yeah, I mean, schools typically have large properties and they usually have big setbacks and, you know, playgrounds and parking lots and things like that. So there's usually a pretty good distance between the structure and the property line, but eventually you get out into private property or other properties.
Well, the new apartments across from Logan High are right there. They're not, it's a
That is
high school
correct.
and they're not near the open playing fields, but we do have.
We do have high-rise.
Yeah,
And we're going to have an
high-rise
executive, we're going to have an executive hotel and then another,
Yeah, but it's not an elementary school.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the same as schools, which
What are the schools usually zoned, Russ?
Schools are typically zoned public in our city
Okay,
because they're publicly owned.
yeah.
okay. But in this case, it's not publicly owned, so.
Yeah, and I'm not sure what zoning Nibley applies to Thomas Edison, charter school.
It's okay.
Yeah, one of the challenges is that it's right on the borderline,
Yeah,
so makes it more difficult.
thank you.
Does anybody have any other comments or questions?
Is the school directly to the south of this site?
It's right
Yes,
up
this
there.
is the
Okay.
school here. Can you see my cursor?
I like this project. It's in the wrong place, so I move for denial of ordinance 22-21.
Is there a second?
I'll second that. I agree. I like the project and reading through it and looking at it. And
I like the project.
population it's
Yeah.
intent to serve, I think, is a very needed thing, but it's on the highway is not. I second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? The resolution is to deny the rezone. All those in favor of denial, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Motion has been denied. We'll move now to a public hearing on Fairway Lofts rezone. Russ, I'm going to turn the time over to you again.
Yeah, thank you. So this is another rezone request from Tony Johnson on behalf of Alliance Acquisitions LLC. This one is a corner property at the corner of 4th South and 4th West. And it's historically been used as a corner market. It was the Fairway Market in the 1950s. That business type went out of business several decades ago and has been abandoned. It's been used for storage. There's a home on the property, built in the early 1900s, a Victorian-style home, and they've just been using the Fairway Market building for storage. Recently acquired by Tony Johnson, and his idea was to reestablish the corner market. And so he's requesting NC. NC is short for Neighborhood Center, which is the City of Logan's smallest commercial zone, or it's the least intensive commercial zone. The Island Market is Neighborhood Center, so that might give you a good idea of what to expect. The area is zone MR12, as the area has a mix of multifamily and some older single family. To the right is public zoning, that's the alternative school there. And then to the south, you have the fairgrounds, and kitty corner, you have the Logan Aquatic Center. The future land use plan does not indicate NC anywhere, just because it's hard to anticipate where a corner market would work and where it wouldn't work. And so I think it just, the council needs to determine, is this a good spot for a corner market? As we discussed last time, there's no NC zones west of Main Street. They're all east of Main Street, so one could argue that this area is underserved for this small scale commercial. There is commercial services and uses nearby. You have the Crumb Brothers area, which is about 2 blocks away. And then the convenience stores along Main Street at 3rd South are about 4 or 5 blocks away. Other than that, there's not any commercial services nearby. One unique aspect about this particular property and its position is being adjacent to the fairground. There's a dozen events throughout the year where there are massive numbers of crowds and individuals that would benefit from a corner market like this. Otherwise, you've got a pretty fairly dense neighborhood that could possibly support a smaller corner market. One unique thing about this property, and Commissioner Simmons, you brought that, sorry, Councilwoman Simmons, you brought this up last time, the structure type table in the code only allows for live work, and I think we contemplated that these wouldn't be more than one building. It would be a corner market and then possibly an apartment or something upstairs, because the zone does allow residential. It is a mixed-use zone, but we didn't contemplate having secondary structures, and in this case, the home. But that's the way this one was developed. The home was built first in 1911, and then the Fairway Market was later in the 50s. When you talk about structure type, you look at compatibility. Obviously, a 4-story 24-plex would not be compatible, so that's a structure type you wouldn't want here. But a single-family home, a duplex, I think would be compatible in this area of MR12 zone. We're looking at amending that table to account for these properties that have multiple structures. One possible solution to that issue, though, too, is the applicant could subdivide and put the corner market on a single property, and then the home would be zoned MR12.
The lot's big enough to subdivide?
What's
The
that?
parcel's big enough to subdivide?
Yes, but that could be an option if the structure type amendment isn't adopted. And you'll see that in the future, along with no drive-throughs in the NC zone. So that's something that we feel detracts from the neighborhood character. As you saw earlier on their earlier site plan, they try to wind a drive-through there. It makes it difficult. They had numerous driveways and curb cuts and parking lots, and it just didn't fit in with the neighborhood character. As you can see here, the applicant has since amended that, and so this is the latest drawing that kind of shows what the Planning Commission requested.
So
And
this is,
so
the Planning Commission approved this then?
yes,
Already.
and so one driveway here, one driveway here. This is for the house. This is all kind of front yard landscaping. This parking is for the store, and then this parking is for the second dwelling unit. If you recall, the zone allows for up to 2 dwelling units. There's also curbside parking available for quick grab and go.
You had mentioned the island market. The zone around the island market, is that mixed residential?
No, that zone is single family around the island market. And then it's public just south where Wilson
Where the school is.
But the gas station where the Indian restaurant is, that's also neighborhood commercial, is it not?
It is.
And that's got campus residential around it.
It is. And then the only other one is Herb's Inn,
Yeah.
which is NC, and then single family around that.
Because where the pizza place is and Beaver Mountain is, that's community commercial.
Correct. That's
Which is
CC,
why-
which is kind of a step up in intensity. These renderings
So-
show the new home and then the market.
So with the discrepancy, it's not that I'm not in favor of the rezone and all of that, but with the discrepancy in the tables, how does that affect the project moving forward, since the Planning Commission already approved it, even though it really technically wasn't legal?
It's a conditional approval, and so that technicality will have to be part of that conditional approval prior to any building permits or construction. That will either have to be adopted, or again, maybe the solution is a subdivision if that doesn't get adopted.
Okay,
But
so
there's a way forward.
if it is subdivided, it doesn't solve the problem unless the subdivision takes away the NC zone
For the house.
for the house.
yeah, I don't know if subdivision's gonna be the best option. That's just
Well,
one
I'm
way
just
to
sort
address
of
the
trying
structure
to-
type.
Trying to figure out what the way forward is in terms of
Right, because
just,
you'd have to subdivide it and then ask for the rezone versus rezone the whole parcel, because it doesn't fix the
Right.
ability for them to put the second unit on the house.
So consider structure type when you vote rezone tonight. If you're not comfortable with a single family home or a duplex in the NC zone, then vote accordingly, and then we could possibly readjust the application to follow.
the other alternative is that we solve the problem before we do the rezone.
Yeah, you can also do that as well.
Because it's
So
going to have to be done
continue-
before they can get a permit to do the work anyway, right? The problem's going to have to be fixed before they could pull permits. Because right now it doesn't
Not with the
comply with
conditional
zone.
approval, right?
So, but what I'm hearing you say is there are two alternatives. One is to fix the code so that this, which is a little like spot zoning in my opinion, but that's okay. That's a whole other conversation. But,
Well, NC is
sort of
spot.
is.
Yeah, it's all
by
spot
Major
zoning.
spots.
no, but I mean, you know, like changing the table because it doesn't fit what somebody wants to do, as opposed to changing the table because we realized we made a mistake, you know, or something like that. But anyway, that's another issue. So to my mind, we're sitting here with a potential rezone of a parcel, and then we have two alternatives. We have to either change the use table so that the proponent can do what they want to do with the property, or they have to subdivide the property and downzone or change the zone on half of it again.
It's not the use table, it's the structure type. So the uses are allowed. It's allowed to have residential and it's allowed to have commercial. It's
But
just the
it's not allowed,
structure type
it's not allowed to
says,
have houses.
right, it just says live work, which
Yeah.
is defined as one building with both a commercial and a residential inside that building envelope.
Right.
But if it was subdivided, does the west half fit the MR zone that's currently the zoning for it? Or would it need to be changed regardless?
Yeah, I would assume it would stay MR12 on the
Does
west
that-
side.
Does that fit on that, does that project fit in MR12 right now?
You could have 3 dwelling units in MR12 right now.
So yes, the half of it.
So subdividing it and doing half
Very compatible.
where he wants to do the market as the neighborhood commercial and leaving the other half in the MR12 solves the problem.
Possibly, yes.
Does that work with setbacks and everything?
And I don't even know if the applicant would propose a subdivision.
It just fits already with what it's in, so.
The house is an existing structure.
Right.
What the tricky part is the new structure that they want to build behind the house, this modern small unit. They applied for an Airbnb, or I should say short-term rental. They applied for a short-term rental. They get 1 short-term rental. They cannot have 2 because there's proximity offsets. You can only have short-term rentals 500 feet apart. So the plan is to have 1 standard residential unit, 1 short-term rental, and then the corner market.
So I think you said this earlier, but the live work, is that an interpretation or is that defined in?
Yes, that's a structure type defined and graphically shown in our code. Yeah, it's 1 building with an apartment above a corner shop or something like that. But the structure type proposal that we're going to bring to you is compatible because most of these NC zone requests are going to be in low to medium density. And the structure types that we're proposing are similar. They're the smaller, they're the house, the duplex, the live work. Stuff that we feel would be compatible if you do happen to have a property with multiple buildings. The other thing is the island market just has the 1 structure. Herms Inn just has the one structure,
Right.
Yellow Market. So this would be unique in the sense that it does have
Just has one structure.
3 structures on one property.
So I go back to the statement that, do we approve the rezone this evening, or do we wait until the code, the structure type table says that this can actually happen? That's my question, but that's to you guys, not.
And what would be the timeframe for bringing that change forward
I really don't care.
for the
Schedule for
structure
that
use?
structure type. We're going to do that in January for
Let's go to planning commission in January. I think there's an issue though with procedurally, if you delay this, it still has some vested rights to proceed the process. So the issue is we have pending legislation now because it's in process, but this would still apply to the older rules because it's further along the process than that. So even if you delay it, I don't think it goes back in line and has to follow the new rules. I don't really think it's a big issue. I'm not sure why we're getting hung up on this. It's going to come to you. It's not inconsistent with what's around it. And before they actually build, they'll be consistent or compliant with what the rules are going to say. Gene?
Because the reason I said it to begin with was because we have to treat everyone the same. And if it doesn't fit, if it doesn't meet our code, you can't approve it. And so I'm stuck in that space of, if we approve it tonight, it doesn't meet the code.
But we're not approving the project, we're just approving the
you're approving the
zone.
rezone.
Right, we're
Yeah.
approving the rezone, which doesn't allow the approved project to go forward.
Yeah, so he could have applied for just a rezone request without any kind of renderings or drawings or a plan. And that's really what's in front of you is that rezone request. It's not the project. The project was approved by planning commission. And they did so recognizing they were doing it inconsistent with what the rules were saying. They also recognized it was a flaw in the way the rules were written because it does allow residential uses, but yet the structure type itself is inconsistent with the use charts.
Okay.
So we're trying to rectify that, reconcile it. I mean, it's a little backwards. We're not doing it just for Tony. We just realized that this doesn't make a lot of sense.
Okay. So, now that we've had all that discussion, this is a public hearing. And any member of the public who wishes to speak to this is welcome to come forward and state your name. And take 3 minutes. Seeing no one, I'll bring it back.
I would move approval of ordinance 22-22.
I'll second the motion.
Fabulous comment from Mike.
It's kind of the way I felt too, so, and Ernesto seconded, so.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? I made a mountain out of a molehill, maybe.
It's all right.
I'll just say,
It was worth discussing.
I appreciate getting rid of that drive-through. That drive didn't work. It doesn't have anything to do with the zoning. It's just for Tony, I'm glad we got rid of that. It'll work better. So,
Any other comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Sorry, Tony, we just sort of went you through the ringer.
I like it.
It wasn't because we didn't like the project, it's because I'm sort of that
We want to make
person
sure,
who
we
runs
want to
the
make sure
tables.
it's right. That's right.
I like the project. I think it's going to
I like
bring
it. I
good
think
life
it's
to
great.
that
I'm the
area.
person who reads the table. Mike, I do have a question that's not related, it's related to what was just up on the screen. Why is a school public and the fairgrounds recreation?
It's a good question.
Why is the fairgrounds not public?
Because you go there to recreate.
Oh, stop it.
No recreation at the school, so.
Yeah, I mean, it could be sixes, I think, in that case. It could be either or.
Okay, I just wondered if there was some philosophical reason why it's rec. I mean, it was so
Instead,
bright
yeah.
green. I was like, Wait a minute, everything else
Dumped
is
out,
public.
yeah.
Because I inherited that when I came here, and I think you were responsible for drawing the map originally.
Oh, stop. I'm not that old. Well, we might want to reconsider and make it public at some point in time.
That's a fair question.
So, we have another public hearing, it's a budget adjustment. Rich, would you like to go through this for us?
We have 3 items to consider. The first is a request to appropriate $400,000 of additional grant funding for the First West roadway extension. Request to appropriate $7,549 for a state grant for our interlibrary loan program. And lastly, a request to appropriate $7,848 for a U.S. Treasury grant to our police department for investigative equipment.
And the $400,000 is money that CMPO designated for First West, so it's just making it active and available to spend.
Correct.
It was an additional grant because costs have increased with all the construction escalation.
Okay.
So,
Nice.
Any other questions?
No.
This is a public hearing. If anyone would like to speak to this, please come forward, state your name, and take 3 minutes or less.
As a member of the community, Gail Yost, as a member of the community that goes to church right there where that southern route of First West is going. It's right next to our church because the older church knows take it down.
Except the steeple.
So,
Except the Steve.
so now we have to drive instead of walk, especially in the winter. But I think they're doing a pretty good job so far, and it's looking really nice. The waiting period of getting it to that point was hard because we had to go around a block, and we go in 3rd South, and 3rd South doesn't go all the way through, so we had to learn our way around that part of the neighborhood. But it is a very smooth-looking street, and it accommodated for the people who are on First West, on the west side, and 6th South, to have a separate little road in. And I think that was very helpful to them because being on First East, we know how hard it is to get out of our driveways, or even to get in our driveways. And so we are appreciative of how it's gone so far. I thought I'd let you know we like what's happening.
It's a beautiful bridge,
It is.
Yeah, it
just
is.
saying. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Bring it back to the council for a decision.
I'll move approval of this. I think it's been well discussed, and so I approve. I move that we approve. Is it 2248?
Yes. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Our last public hearing this evening is a code amendment. Craig, I'm going to turn the time over to you for a minute.
All right, do you want a review of what we discussed at the workshop, or?
Yes,
I
please.
noticed you corrected the Hillcrest.
We did, yes. we did
Okay,
that.
thank you.
This is a cleanup thing, aligned with what's happening with neighborhood councils at this time. Establishes 7 neighborhood councils. The current ordinance just has 1 with reps from each council, or from each neighborhood. The councils are encouraged to adopt bylaws, have a steering committee, the chair and assign a chairperson or vote for a chairperson, and that chairperson is ratified by the council. 1 member of the city council would be assigned to each neighborhood council, may attend those meetings as they can.
And so you defined it, you did define it by, you defined the neighborhoods geographically, not by school boundary, correct?
Right, correct.
Because the school boundaries keep changing.
And that map can be revised, and if there is ever a need to, we just have to revise the map, not the.
Right, we have to amend this ordinance, revising the map.
Right, in the map, okay.
Any other questions? This is a public hearing. If anyone chooses to speak to this, please come forward. Seeing no one, you want to speak?
I approve, that's all.
We did get a letter on this one from Hillary Shugart.
Yes, we did.
Affirming
Yeah.
that it was
Being
good to
very
codify
happy.
what we've
Yes.
done. So that's the only letter I got. I don't know if anybody
Positive,
got anything
yeah.
else.
That's the only
I
one.
saw that.
Everything I've got was
Thank you for
positive, too.
mentioning that.
Yeah.
Okay. It's brought back to the
That's
council.
right, yes. I'll move to approve ordinance 22-25.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? We'll move now to our workshop items. We have 2. Budget adjustment, Rich?
First one is a request to appropriate funds for our surcharge in our electric fund. We put on the agenda 1.4 million. It's actually, that is the portion that is residential. We'll modify this on a future agenda to be 6.877447. That's
Million.
a huge amount of money. We recognize that, but that's the surcharge spread across industrial, commercial, and residential. This is also the estimate through March. Now, the surcharge has gone down significantly from the prior month to this month, and also we anticipate it'll go down more as we progress through the winter. However, we can't predict the future. We can only kind of predict it based on what we've seen thus far. And so the estimate is 6.8 million to get us through March. We'll also have, future rate increases in the electric fund as we have those studies come back to us and what they recommend. So 6.8 million to get us through March. Request to appropriate 162,000 of funds that we received from a developer as they are upgrading the Meadowbrook lift station in anticipation that the city would accept that as infrastructure. A request to appropriate 8,000, so that 162 is funds that have been received from a developer as part of what they're doing to upgrade that lift station. A request to appropriate 8,508, a grant that the EMS fund has received for training. And finally, a request to appropriate 70,440 for this is the targeted air shed grant that we received, I think 2 fiscal years ago, and we replaced all of our fire trucks with and many of our other older pieces of equipment where the state or the federal government through the state has incentivized us to replace older pieces of equipment that pollute for cleaner running vehicles. They reached out to us and said a vehicle that we wanted to replace previously that didn't qualify now qualifies. So we're requesting to appropriate 70,440 of a grant toward that purpose.
Do we have to destroy the dump truck?
We do have to destroy the old one. I think we have to drill a 6-inch hole and
Well, that was your
pictures.
personal vehicle.
Can we come and help drill it?
Yeah, you can. I think we have to cut the frame, drill a 3-inch hole through the block, and then we have to do some other stuff and document all of it. Have a
Take
party,
pictures.
and do different stuff.
Take it to the
I
landfill.
think we should auction off the opportunity.
We
We
should.
should auction off
Really should.
whoever would like to do that. And it's
Now,
gonna
the
cost
terrific
you.
thing about this one is this is a piece of equipment we really felt like we needed anyway. So those are the best kind of grants, the things that we're anticipating we have to do and also benefit the federal government indirectly, so.
So I have a question on the power stuff. So you
Yeah.
have the last line item, the UAMPS power exchange and 5-year firm contract is listed on there. Can you explain what that means to me?
In the resolution itself,
Yeah.
I believe, is it just the account number? What is, can you bring it up there? Oh, hurry, Craig.
Am I not looking at the right thing?
It's not on the,
It's not
not
on
on
the
the-
list.
It's on the website.
It's here.
It was
Yeah.
the resolution that was
Oh,
on the website.
yeah, so that is just the account that we're buying it from. That's the name that we put
Oh,
on
okay, thank you.
the account number. It's really just the pool. And since we're buying much of this on the open market, that's where we put it. If we happen to buy it through one of our, we have probably 15 different account numbers for our various purchase power places where we buy our power that we track each one separately. This one we're putting in the UAMPS pool.
Okay.
And so it's just the specific account we're specifying here. However, it is possible if we had any other option to buy it through one of the other accounts, we'd simply move it. But
Okay. So
yeah, that's a little.
5-year firm contract account for the surcharge?
Yeah, we could probably just strike through everything after exchange. UAMPS power exchange is perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Teresa.
Any other questions? Next up is Russ. One of these days, we're going to put you not up last on the agenda.
Yeah.
Everybody takes a turn.
And actually, Akina comes before Anderson, so like if you're doing it alphabetically.
Barely.
Yeah,
Just
barely.
saying.
I appreciate that. In April, we brought a number of fees before you. This is in relation to where we've seen inflation go, and it's touching everything, right? Including services we have in the department. Just to kind of do a real quick summary for you. In the department, there are 742 different services. However, not all of them have fees associated with them, but there are 419 of them that do. And so in the spring, we did 52 of those. And I'm coming before you tonight with 14 more. In your resolution packet, they're broken into 3 categories. This is golf course, and then 2 in the youth programming, one youth basketball, and the other one is team girls fast pitch program. And so what we're looking to do is to propose to increase those 14 services, and we have an effective date that we're proposing as January 4th. So this would be your first council meeting in January on the 3rd. The reason for doing that is to get particularly the golf ones, because the youth ones won't take effect until summer on the team fast pitch, and junior jazz is underway right now. So those 2 programs shouldn't be effective until next year. But we want to stay ahead of the golf season for next year, and people do buy these seasonal passes in advance of the season starting, so we want to stay ahead of that. And so that's the reason for looking at January 4th.
Aren't they buying them now?
Yeah, there are people that are buying some now.
Christmas
Anticipating that, yeah, as a guess, sure, but anticipating that the fees will go up. I presume, part of this is because we've had discussion with the golf board and also the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board about these 3 areas that we're proposing tonight. And so with their approval of that, I'm here tonight. With that, I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Will we be seeing more as,
Yes.
okay, because we haven't done the swimming pool, have we?
We did a chunk of that in the spring.
Okay.
And that was in advance of the swim season for this past summer.
And we upped the group, like the
Group reservation.
Did that help?
Yes, but we're setting a number at a time when inflation is just not stopping. So
And chemicals are costing more and more.
Chlorine in particular has just been a runaway train.
Wow.
So what's a senior for the golf pass? How old do you have to be a senior?
52.
Well, some of us have the AARP cards, so I'm just questioning, like, do you have to be 65, 72, like, different age to 30?
I should know this, but I don't.
It's set by
Because I
the
want to claim I'm
PGA.
not there yet.
It should be 50 and above, that's the senior.
That's the senior tour, yeah, so it should be set by the PGA.
You're not even close.
We're trying to raise revenue.
I thought it was higher than that, but I'll have
On
to.
senior tour.
I'm assuming it's 65.
Thinking the
That's what
same
I'm
thing.
thinking. It's that it's-
You should get another break when you hit 78. I really would. Most of them can't even hit the ball.
Because that's when things start to go downhill,
I let you
Tom.
slow play down, so it makes it worse for you.
I don't know if they still do it, but at least for a while, I think Beaver Mountain said anyone over 80 could ski
Keep her
free.
free, yeah.
But-
If they can.
Yeah.
I do have a question for you. I mean, this is silly, but on the range fees for you got Valley View for a small bucket, it's 10, and a large bucket, it's 5. I think you transpose those numbers. I doubt if you get twice as much.
That's a good
Half as much.
possibility.
On Valley View?
I mean, it doesn't have anything to do with us, but
Oh, yeah.
I really believe the
Transpose. the
price for the large bucket for Logan is kind of out of line. You got $10, $8, and $10. And I mean, I know you're doubling 6, but you know, quantity discount. I'd make it 10.
That's what it is.
The object here is not.
What it is now.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
5 and 10, and he's making it 6 and
Well,
12.
okay, but the object is to be somewhat close to
We're
the.
probably
similar.
anticipating it, and the other communities have not yet, so.
Okay,
that's what
well-
I suspect. Those range balls are getting really
The
expensive.
local horses, the three of us, so this is Birch, Eagle Mountain, and us, they talk a lot amongst themselves in terms of where are you on cards, where are you on green fees, and so forth. So there's some truth to that.
Any more questions?
I just would like to see it down lower.
You want to pay less for your bucket of balls, don't you?
I can't hit a whole large bucket of balls. I hit a little bit.
Oh, okay.
So it's not a self-interest.
Just checking.
This increase for the passes is over 10%. What seems to me probably the highest has been increased in one single time.
On which area are you looking?
The River Gulf season passes.
Oh,
Has there been ever another time when it's been increased more than 10%?
what I want to say is I go back to the April resolution. I don't have the percentage analysis from that one like I do tonight on those comparisons. My guess is going to be, though, it's going to be comparative. I mean, that's probably an easy way out for me, but it's probably comparative to what we're looking at tonight because staff is looking at where's inflation right now, what can the market bear, where the other forces are on like services. But I'm guessing without having the percentage amounts from the April resolution, I'm guessing it's about what we're looking at tonight. And in those areas, for what you're seeing in the resolution, just in the passes alone, it's between 8 and 15%.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Russ. Are there other considerations?
Can I pass out, these are some information on the new warming center that's going to be opening on Friday. Just to reassure people that care and safety for the guests as well as the volunteers are important. So we had a big training last Friday and continuing to meet volunteers. So
I thought it opened on the 1st.
Right.
Oh, okay. Anything else?
I think it should be required that everyone who gets up and speaks brings treats, so.
Thank you, Gail. Okay, we are adjourned.
Is that going to be an ordinance?
Thank you for the months.
We want an
Is
ordinance.
that a resolution?
Would that be